Hebrew Israelites like this love to attack Christians. They say things like, it's the white man's religion, it's in big error, and it's teaching lies. Listen to how the leader of the biggest Hebrew Israelite group today says he got introduced to it. This will show you where the lie starts.
I was introduced to the teachings of the Israelites, according to the Bible, in 1990. It was a brother named Black. Me and my wife were going from church to church, trying to find our way.
So about 30 years ago, a man named Black, we are already off to a funny start. Bishop Nathaniel and his wife were moving around from church to church. Seeking for truth is what we must do, but going from church to church is already raising questions. What was he searching for? Before this man Black convinces him to join the Hebrew Israelites, he became a Muslim. And this is where he tells you what he was searching for.
I said, because it's the black man's religion.
We are about to get into what he says about the Bible, but all that searching was for the religion of the black man.
The Kaaba stone. You kiss the Kaaba stone. I knew as a Christian that's idolatry. So when I read it, I said, oh shoot, I didn't know that.
So as a Christian, he knew kissing the black stone was idol worship, which is true. But he didn't know from the Bible, as a Christian, God welcomes people from all places to trust in him and is impartial. It's one thing to say churches are racist or westernized Christianity goes overboard, but you don't judge the book by the people. You judge the people by the book. That is how you find truth.
Christ was black, Revelation 1, 14, 15.
Let's research Revelation chapter 1, verse 14 to 15 and see if this says that Jesus is black. It says, his head and hairs white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes as a flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. They love to quote verse 15, saying Jesus' feet were like brass that's burnt in the fire. They say this shows he was black, but by the same logic, verse 14 would say Jesus is white. Verse 14 says his head and hairs were white like wool, and as white as snow. Touch your head. This would mean he's white.
You big dummy.
Would mean he's white. This sort of foolish Bible teaching will have you thinking Jesus had a white head and brown feet. I spoke about this in another video. That's how I know he still believes passages like this are solid decades later. Reasoning gets lost. That is how you get people saying stuff like your face is not your head. But let's listen to another reason he joined the Hebrew Israelites.
Daniel 7 and 9.
Let's read Daniel 7 verse 9. I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. His throne the fiery flame, and wheels as burning fire. This does not say God was black. His throne was like the fiery flame. That's not black. And his wheels as a burning fire. That's not black either. The color of burning fire is orange or red. But this is talking about God's throne he sits on. The color of God's throne, not him. God gets described as sitting on a throne chariot here and in other places like Ezekiel chapter 1. A glorious throne that moved and gets held up by angels. Pure always white. That fits better into the context of the verse. Judah mourns, and the gates thereof languish. They are black unto the ground, and the cry of Jerusalem is gone up. The verse before tells us this is a passage about famine, lack in the land of Judah. If this was saying Israelites are black, this would make no sense. This is what happens when someone goes looking through the Bible for key words. We must do. Read Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 2 to 7 to see this is a woman. This is one of Solomon's 1,000 women. But read verse 6. This is not someone with a black skin tone from birth. After saying she's black but beautiful, she says, I am black because the sun has looked on me. She is talking about a suntan.
Shalom, all praises goes to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Recha Ha Kodash, and double honors to the elder apostles and bishops of Great Millstone. Honors as well to your other brethren, your fellow believers of this faith, supporters of the truth as well. Shalom to you too. Even a few sisters that support the truth. Shalom, and shalom to the elect. So I want to go in this video here. He calls himself the Christian apologist. Christian Arena is his channel. And we're going to touch on a couple of things he said. We're going to go into some, old literature. And there's quite a few things he said. So, when you get in these kind of videos, he made like a 10, 15 part series in like 10 minutes to defend his belief. So, we're just going to go into it and defend it, twist it back the right way. So anyway, this man talked about the Bishop Nathaniel and how he woke up to the truth by a man named Black, which I wouldn't know that as beyond my time of coming into truth. I know the elder apostles known him, and who knows what come out of Bishop Nathaniel's mouth, if it's true or not, but that's what he said, so we'll go with that. Now, the thing I wanted to touch on is the fact that Bishop Nathaniel woke up to the fact on his own through the Spirit of the Lord to find whatever truth he believed, because he was in One West originally, just as I woke up and found out what I believe. The problem with Christianity, we didn't have a chance to wake up to what we believed. We were born into that idolatrous religion. And another issue I'm having is this man is fighting to keep Jesus white, the Messiah white, when we were following Christianity, when we was in Christianity and Christianity came into our homes, guess what? Nobody told us that image was a lie, although everybody know it's a lie. He will not make videos fighting for the image being a lie. What he will do is say it doesn't matter what he looked like, just as long as we believe in him. Does that make any sense? To follow a other God that was forced on us as a murderer and a poisoner with his own sister, and his own father took his own sister, took his daughter. Him and his son has ravished his daughter and his sister. This is who they put up, not some random man that they painted and put up. That's who they put up to be the Messiah. Now, why should we believe in that lie? And if the Messiah stood for that, why would the Most High Yahweh allow his son to be setting in the image of such idolatry and sickness, right? And incest and madness? Why would that happen? See, now that doesn't make any sense. So anyway, it's only two things I'm going to go into in this video, and I really want to go into the texture of his hair and what it said, right? In Revelation 1, I put in there my skin is black, Revelation 1 and 14. So I may go into other scriptures, I don't know, but we're going to go to Revelation 1 and 14. I really just wanted to do the commentary on this guy, but we got to read the scriptures too. Revelation 1 and 14. His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow. So he's saying, well, it doesn't make no sense, because if his head is white, how his feet going to be black? So we're going to go into the Bible of 82, John Wycliffe of the 1382. Let's see what it says. And the head of him and his hairs were white. This changes things. The head of him, right? The head of him is talking about his top, right? We're going to show you. As white as wool, right? And as snow. And the eyes is like a flame of fire. And his feet like unto lantern. Lantern is very dark. Lantern is really a form of fine brass. Refined brass is not that gold that people think, or some orange. Brass is dark. Fine brass is dark. Lantern is dark. Look it up. Then it goes on to say, as a burnt chimney. Burnt. Past tense. Not burning. Burnished. Burnt chimney. So that kind of solidifies that. So even if you're trying to make the fact that, okay, well, his head and his hairs were white, there must be some disconnect if you're thinking his head was white, because there's no such thing as anybody having a white head, right? So there's some disconnect there. So we're going to go to some other translations as well. And we're going to see also what this is talking about through some other translations. Revelation 1 and 14. Right? I don't think I'll make this long. In the NIV, this is what it says. No, that's 14 and 1. 1 and 14. Let's see what 1 and 14 says in the other translations. It says in the NIV, the hair on his head was white like wool. See that? That's what it meant by when you're dealing with Old English, and as Old English started converting to modern English, that's when they said the head of his hairs. Because when you read Hebrew, it's a straight, direct point. But as you start watering it down and it starts changing, then there's other things that apply to it, and this is where the context gets confused. Right? Like Deuteronomy 28:68, they shall buy and none shall buy you. Right? And they use buy as we was bought into slavery, but nobody bought us. Who the hell wouldn't buy a slave? But anyway, that's the mindset of plantation Christianity. Now, to speak on that a little bit before I go back, he didn't touch on white plantation Christianity, how during the 1600s, 1500s, the Reformationists and all them, they upheld Christianity over everybody else, even Africa and other nations. But over time, the Jesuits and various others, you had the evangelicals, and the Protestants, the protesters. They had this fight going on about converting Christians, right? So they felt that these are not good slaves unless we can convert them. So you had one group saying, we don't want them as slaves. And those were like your clans that you would see with the sheets, right? We don't want them as Christians, Salakia. We don't want them as Christians. This is why. And then you had the other group saying, well, we can convert them. And they're meant to be our slaves because of the book of Genesis. Says they're the curse of, they got Canaan's curse, Ham's curse. Right? And that's where they got that from. Both of them were still racist, but one of them felt if we put white plantation Christianity on them, they will obey us. And as I was going to a Jake I was talking to today, he said the Bible was rewritten, man-made, and gave it to us for slavery. Well, that doesn't make sense, because the bottom line is, yes, it was used for slavery, but if something was rewritten, meaning it originally existed. So if the white man wanted to give us a book, he could have just wrote what he wanted and put it in a book and gave us. But what he did do, he took out everything that he didn't want us to see. And then he gave it to us because it was our book. They came into power and they knew this Bible had so much power. That's why they took to it. This is why the Roman Catholics took to that Bible. Right? You know what I'm saying? So they went around, rape, rob, and murder, and then doing it like all the way up to like the 1800s, we was pretty much fully converted. And then they set us up to praise and worship. They had tears. It's a whole story going on. I'm not going to read all that. The slaves would have slave owners. The slave owners would mess with some of them women, and they would have children. Them children would be tares, and they'll raise them up in so-called black culture. This is where you get the boule, and this is where you get these politicians you see. Hundreds of years ago, they'd have been forms of tares. But then they understood to hire their own as long as they can indoctrinate them. So then they set them up in churches. Then they had the praise breaks. The list go on. Then they told us to follow the Christmas traditions. And then we started following that because of benefits, favor. We were broken people. So anything before the 1500s and what we were following, right? This Christianity, white Christianity, was put on us, and that's what gave us That's where you get that, and you can read all of this, right? That's where you get that white plantation Christianity. This is why this is matter in Revelation 1 and 14. Because they will tell you, and again, this man is the pure prime example of what a slave owner would have created. This is why I said his head and his hairs were white like wool, and they will look for something to say that Jesus was white, although they know that the one they call Jesus was a lie from the picture. So if that was a lie, that image was a lie, why wouldn't everything else be a lie? But you got these super K's, let me say that, who wants him to be white and wants us to continue to follow in the white Jesus. Let's go on down to more translation. His head and then when we go to Daniel 7 and 9, when it says his hair was when it talks about the Ancient of Days did sit, right? And his hair was of the pure wool. The original word for wool in ancient wool, the word was hair of negroids. Anyway, his head and his hair were white like wool, right? The English Standard Version Bible says the hairs on his head were white like wool. This is why it says his head and his hairs, because if your head is normally white, your beard will be white too, right? And nobody has a white face. This is why they said white likened unto wool in the old translations. But in the old translations, it also says his feet like unto a burnt chimney. So what's more convincing? The head and the hairs of his head being white, like wool? Like wool. Because that would also show that his face, he had like a woolly beard. Or his feet being burned, looking like a burnt chimney. Which one would be more convincing? Even if you want to go metaphorical, which one would still be more convincing? Because at the end of the day, it's still describing. No, his hair wasn't actual wool, right? But it was likened unto wool, right? It wasn't snow, but it was likened unto snow. His eyes wasn't red, fire, but likened unto fire. But his feet wasn't like fine brass. No, it wasn't fine brass, but it was likened unto fine brass. So you get the point. His feet was not a burnt chimney, but it was likened unto a burnt chimney. See, these Christians, you know, you can't handle us in Scripture. You know, we do too much research, and we already believe. The Scripture says, "Let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind." We clearly already believe, so we're just going out to get the proof and the evidence. You know what I'm saying? Let's go to Daniel 7 and 9. Let me see here. Daniel 7 and 9. The Ancient of Days did sit. Like I'm on another translation. Let me go to 7 and 10. 7 and 9. Let's go to 7 and 9 and look at some translations on here and see where we at. Now, I'm not going to make this video long, but sometimes I like going into this consistently because you sometimes get more and more information. And his hair on his head was like the pure wool. The hair on his head like the purest wool, right? Like the pure wool. Right? His head on his hair, it keeps saying like the pure wool. So what I'm going to do, I don't know where this is going to go, but I'm going to look up what it means by the pure wool. I doubt if they have it. You know, who knows what they're going to say. Let's go to the lexicon. Let's see what it says here. Who knows? It says absolutely nothing, an unused word or whatever. That's what they do. But why was that word there from the beginning? Now, when you're dealing with woolly hair, it can come from a very tight texture to an almost looser texture, but it's still woolly, right? So when you got darker skin, and you got woolly hair, it makes sense. Even if a Jake has like a bush and you can push on it, it still can be form of soft. Doesn't mean it's always fully kinked. But we know this picture of white Jesus do not have woolly hair. Anyway, it says woolly hair is typically very curly, kinky, characteristically impossible to brush. That's not always the case. You see how over the years everything just changes? It can be generalized over a whole scalp and involve just part of the scalp, and occurs in non-black people. That's where we go again. This man is, I think the problem is this black and white thing, and this man is pushing to come against Israelites through the black thing. Where we teach it's not just someone who's black. You got our people who have straight hair, right? And look like other nations. So this man saying Song of Solomon, the wife of Song of Solomon, she got a tan. Well, I never seen a white person turn tan, although that was Solomon speaking. You know, that's crazy, man. This is what they do, you know. So I just wanted to touch on that. Not much on, you know, the bishop. You know, he was saying the right things when it came to their interview, but he definitely goes off. Anyway, that's all I have on that. Shalom.